Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, and educator with over 20 years of experience in the areas of elementary and special education. It's my mission to help you create lifelong learners and embrace a holistic approach to education at home. I'll be sharing practical strategies, inspiration, and resources to support your family. Whether you're a stay-at-home mom, a business owner, or balancing work and homeschool, you're in the right place to connect with a community that values education just as much as you do. Join us each week as we ditch the stress, embrace the joy of learning, and set your family up for a lifetime of success. Welcome to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I'm your host, Christine Furman, and today we have a very special guest. Welcome, please, Marta Sauret Greca, the Money Flow Strategist. So last episode, we talked all about money and ways that you can incorporate financial literacy for your kiddos. And today, I brought you the Money Flow Strategist, and we're going to talk even more about these next steps for our kiddos. Welcome, Marta.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So, Christine, you shared that the last episode, you gave a lot of great tips about money strategizing and the practical sense of handling money. And what I like to talk about and piggyback off of that a little bit is debunking some of the myths that maybe we learned as kids and maybe reshape the energy that we feel around money, because I'm a big believer that when it comes to handling money, there is a trifecta of the mindset, the energy, and the spiritual. And of course, with the mindset comes that strategy of budgeting and all that good stuff. And I always like to teach from a place of, here's the mistakes I made, and that way you don't make the same ones, because a lot of the imposter syndrome comes up for me in this field that I'm in. And I think for probably many of you who might be listening and you're in a professional field where you're giving advice and you might be going, yeah, but I'm not perfect and I didn't do things perfectly. And so I like to kind of use that as my superpower of like, I'm not perfect. I didn't do things perfectly, but that's why I feel so connected to the families that I work with, because I meet with a lot of them and they have so much shame or guilt around maybe a debt that they're carrying, or they don't feel like they are where they should be for retirement. And I get to say, like, this is a non-judgmental space. I am not going to cast the first stone because I am not sin-free. So you are in a good space, and I love to make them feel better about that by sharing that. So I'll share the first lesson in regards to a mistake that I made. So in the effort to debunk the myth of money doesn't grow on trees. Right. So we grew up with, a lot of people saying money doesn't grow on trees, probably parents telling that to their kids whenever they want something. Well, I like to reframe that because that's kind of shaming them for wanting. It's often given with an energy of, you shouldn't want this. How dare you want this? Money doesn't grow on trees. And it's like, let's encourage our kids to want. But like you shared in the last episode, when you want something, let's not also disempower them and think that they can't get it from themselves and put it all on our shoulders to provide it for them. So I went from that belief of, money doesn't grow on trees, and I didn't want my kids to feel that energy of money doesn't grow on trees. And so when my business started to do exponentially well, like anything my kids asked for, I would get it. You want to go out to eat? Let's do it. You want to go get a coffee? Like obviously the teenagers. You want to go buy a treat? Let's do it. You want this toy? Why not? Let's put it in the cart. Because I went from a place of being an immigrant. We didn't have a lot of money, and so that wasn't a possibility for us. So I started to make a lot of money. I wanted them to experience that. But then what happens is that money ebbs and flows, and it went from a very abundant time to not so abundant, which is actually not accurate either. It's more of the circumstances were different. It looked like this, and then it looked like this. And that these circumstances didn't permit for that lavish, let's say, spoiling. And so I kind of went from one extreme to the other. And that is what brings me to the old fable of the ant and the grasshopper, because it's like, okay, well, what's that balance of not shaming them for wanting and saying, no, you can't have this, we can't afford it, right? Which are like 4 dirty words. To the energy, and let's not go to the, yeah, whatever you want, you can have it, because that disempowers them from working for it or from earning it? And what's that middle ground, right?
Yes. I think that's so great. And I would love to, dive into that grasshopper and ant story because I think that is a good reminder for us. But I do feel like what you are touching on here of going from one extreme to the other is really important because that was something I brought up at the very end of my show last episode. If you want to check out episode 60, I talked a lot about this. But at the end, I did bring that up. And I would love to get a little bit more perspective from you, Marta, because you lived it as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that I've been in that position too. Like, yeah, as a kid, we weren't able to get everything that we wanted. That just wasn't a reality. Same for my husband. He's
Mm-hmm.
the youngest of seven. It just wasn't the reality. So then, whenever we came together, we both were professionals. We both were able to, bring a decent amount of money into our household. But then it kind of leaves very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, and looking at that and saying, you know what, we've brought in a lot of money into this house. Like, why do I still feel like we don't have
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely love to touch on that. And then you're right. Like, the other part of that is we don't want to just give our kids everything that they want freely because we want them to have a good work ethic. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
think that is something that is lacking and we want to teach our kids, like, we have to still work, like, for what we're getting. Yes, my husband and I, we work from home. Our schedule is very flexible. I homeschool my children, but still, I want them to know I've worked hard to get where I'm at. My husband worked hard to get where he's at. And I want them to really have that good work ethic as well. So then that way they can be successful as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also like to always remind clients whenever we're talking about that like sometimes people call it the feast or famine or, the ebb and flow, that there might be some sort of guilt around like, oh, I made a lot of money, but I sure knew how to spend it. But remember, forever didn't happen yet. And therefore, that money is still coming back to you tenfold. And so it's that marriage of those mentalities that, yes, money will always come back to you. When you flow it out, it is bound to come back in. But do you want to be in that famine in between the times of feast? Because the feast and the famine will happen. Or do you want to consistently feel comfortable if it's within your power to think more strategically about your money and to equate then that relationship with money to as if you had a relationship with a partner, right? So if you have a partner that you spend time with, that you pay attention to, that you honor, that you respect, that you don't take for granted their presence, then likely that's going to be a pretty healthy relationship. And it's the same thing with money. Don't take it for granted, respect it, be a wise shepherd of it, know where it's going, use discernment regarding it, right? And it's not from a place of, love your money in the bad sense, but it's respect it because that money came from God and therefore respect it. Especially if you have that attitude towards money that it stresses you out. If you always have a little bit of a pocket on the side of money, then you'll feel a little bit better too, if we're not even talking about the energetics. Yeah.
That's so true. Once you have that little extra, you're not feeling like you're strapped all the time. That definitely is a reality for sure.
Yeah, it's nice to know. And it's also good for your mindset, especially if you grew up like Christina or I did. And I don't know how similar it is, but I mean, we came from Italy. And my mom couldn't work. My dad could only work. And my dad, will spend all the money if you give him the chance. He will just spend it all. He'll buy everything. Whereas my mom always worried about money. So I come from that upbringing. So if you have that mindset around it, that's also why it's so good if you're investing or if you're putting money aside in the bank. Because if your brain goes, you're not good with money. You're buying another latte, you're getting your nails done again, or you did it again, or you have so much debt, which it's like, okay, thank you for sharing, brain. That's could be true. But what's also true is that I am putting money aside in a savings account. Even if it's $1 for every $100, even if it's you're investing $25 a month and that's all that you can do, you're retraining your brain to focus on that. So anytime you feel bad about it, you say, okay, thanks for sharing. That's fine. But what's also true is this. And so that what you focus on expands.
Yes. So I have to just interject here because Marta has taught me all about mindset time and time again. And I just love that so much because it is very true of like, all right, I hear that negativity, but thank yous very much. And that is not, serving me right now. So I need to focus on the positive and really just allowing those thoughts to come in and then allowing them to leave and focus more on that positive. So thank you, Marta, very much for that because that really has been helpful in my own business, in my life personally, allowing even, past situations or getting to where I'm at. And now moving on to working with you in a different sense, where we're working on finances and, just taking that. And I have to just say also, that you also are so good at that judgment free zone. So grateful for that, where I felt very comfortable to be able to say, hey, you know what? This is our reality. This is what has happened. And this is where we're at. And I just felt such a connection. And like you said, no judgment, and that just really helps too to ease that transition of like, okay, this is where we're at, but we want to get here. How do we do that?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you have some tips for families as well. Like, what does that look like for them going from this is my current situation, but I know this isn't my forever. I
Mm-hmm.
know that there's more. And what does
Mm-hmm.
that look like for us?
Yeah, I think the first bit of good news is that often when somebody feels that way and we meet and we really look at everything, we actually end up celebrating. There's probably like 5 to 10 wins that you're not even considering because, again, your brain is stuck on what you're not doing right because your brain's trying to protect you and your brain's trying to help you improve. So that would be that first step is stop hiding from it, stop ignoring it, stop putting it to the side, stop saying I'm too busy, I can't sit down and meet. Even if it's not meeting with someone like me, setting an appointment with yourself. Like even if you can't do that with your partner because you feel like that's not going to be good. I mean, that's a whole other episode, but just meet with yourself and face your financials. How much do you owe for this and this and this and this and this? What's the interest rate? What's the minimum amount? Okay, now look at your investments. How is it performing right now? A multitude of families don't know exactly how their investments are performing because they're doing the right thing. They're investing and then they're forgetting about it because, it goes up and goes down and maybe they have decades and decades for that to happen. And so they just kind of leave it. But I'd like you to check on your investments as well and know exactly how they're performing. And then some people don't even know exactly how much money they make or how much money their partner makes. And it's, again, totally fine, but it's helpful to sit down and have those conversations and ask. And I'm not into fear mongering, but God forbid something happens and you're not the person who handles the numbers. You want to be in a position where you know exactly what's what and you can handle the numbers, but also not, God forbid, if something happens, just every day, you want to empower yourself to know your numbers. That's step one. And I'm not saying you have to do this every week. Yes, that's ideal. But if you don't have the bandwidth for it, if you don't enjoy it, at least once a month, just look at your numbers and pay attention to them, right? Because that's even what they say whenever a relationship is struggling. What's the number one thing you could do to help your relationship, whether you want to like strangle each other or not? Spend some time together. And whether you fix an issue during that time spent, you're much more connected because you spent time together. Maybe you held hands, right? Maybe there's even more intimacy, right? But like really, that's the same philosophy with your money, paying attention to it, knowing your numbers. That can give you some confidence, just knowing your numbers. And then the next steps really would maybe be meeting with someone like me because I have a system where we can plug in all the debts and it'll formulate an exact plan for you to pay it back much quicker, save. I think one of the last meetings is like over hundreds of thousands of interest. And I get to show families how to pay off their mortgage within the next 5-6 years. And they're thinking they're going to have this mortgage for 30 years, or they're thinking they're going to have this debt for the rest of their lives. And by the way, that's another thing that I want families to know is not consider debt as bad. And sometimes even just reframing that relationship with that of thank you for being there for me. I'm so glad that you were there for me, for my family, whether it was a fun thing, you got to go on a trip, or maybe there's some medical issues, or maybe there was income loss. And those resources were there for you. So don't judge yourself because you did what you could. And if you made mistakes, just learn the lessons and move on, shift into problem solving. And then, like Christine shared in her last episode, if you feel like there's been a cycle of money in your life, have those conversations with your kids and implement practices to help them break the cycle. As soon as my son started a job, we started the Roth IRA. As soon as we opened his bank checking, we opened a bank savings account and continuously shared with him, for every $10 that you make, put $1 at least in your savings account. But then he's got much more aggressive savings plans, right? He wants to buy a car. He wants to go to Italy and France. So that's going to be a much more aggressive savings plan. And that's kind of the final thing for families is not every family, not every person's the same. So somebody else's goals are not your goals. Somebody else's journey is not your journey. Everybody's different. So really understanding and getting clear on where you do want to be, and then journal about that in the present moment. Every single morning, journal about it, even if it's for 1 minute. And I have this, I get to experience this. This looks like this, as if it's already there in the same realm that you visible in your life and existing. And that not only works from an energetic standpoint of the law of attraction, but it tricks your brain. Your brain doesn't know what's real. So that's why visualization is awesome. So if you're feeling like stressed about money, doing some visualization and those journal exercises, visualizing what that actual life is that you want it to look like, your brain doesn't know the difference. So it'll be a mood booster as well as an attractor.
I love that. All of that so much. And there's so many great things like talking about, setting up that account for your son right away. That's something that I talked about in the previous episode of like how we can start that at a very young age. So we're really implementing some practical steps when our kids are, young, and then it's just going to transition. And just like your son wanting to go to Italy and France, I mean, those are big things that we're saving for. So instead of putting more in my spending, I'm going to put more in my savings. So
Mm-hmm.
really allowing them to actually see these tangibles of what they want.
Mm-hmm.
For us, it's starting out with Lego sets,
Mm-hmm.
where Alex wants a bigger Lego set. Well, okay, well, instead of spending your $5 a week,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you save that? So then that way you can purchase that bigger item.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of these steps are very practical and they do just, develop with our kids as well in mind. So,
And that brings another reminder. I think it's super important for parents to remember is that, again, often we put it on our shoulders of we need to make all of these realities happen for our kids, but our kids are God's children and God will make those realities happen for them. And, there was a time when I had planned a big trip to Italy with all our kids and my mom. Because of COVID, it didn't happen. And then life happened thereafter, and then it didn't happen. And guess what? He's still going to get to go because he has his own divine relationship with God. And so it's not necessarily all up to me. And it's going to happen for them. You do your best with what you can do with your human self, and God will take care of the rest.
I love that. Yes. All so many great tips. And there were so many things you said that I was like, oh, yeah, that, it's just so many great things to add in there as well. But you just are a wealth of knowledge. And I'm just so grateful for that. And oh, that's what I was going to say was about, scheduling that time, knowing your numbers,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like for even myself personally, that was a kind of my husband took care of the finances. Not that I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't good at it, let's say, right? I was given a credit card very young and I was not responsible with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then that continued to follow me through college. And then when I met my husband, I'm like, okay, I need to figure this out. Like, this is not good. And of course, I was navigating it, managing it well enough.
Mm-hmm.
I was working, but still I felt like behind, I wanted to get ahead of it. So he would take care of the finances then. Whenever we got married, took care of them. I was like, great, because that's
Mhm.
something that like I had like this negative feeling towards, right? And anytime we had a conversation about money, I would get very defensive.
Mm,
I
mhm,
would be really upset when things would happen, like, well, why is it this way? Or why this? And it was like, you
mhm.
know what? I don't want to do this. Like, you
Yeah.
take care of it. Go ahead, take care of it. And
Mhm,
then this year, I'll just tell you transparently, everyone, like this year, 2025, I said, no. I said, we're stopping that. Like, I'm changing
mhm,
and we're going to do this together because we've said it multiple times. And he's like, just tell me when. Tell
mhm.
me when,
He's
honey.
the
Like,
best.
I'm right here.
Dan's just the
He
best.
is.
He's
He's
the
so
best.
wonderful.
It's being one of 7 kids.
Yes, yes, you know.
He's the best. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah,
So,
I
and
love that
that's
you did
he
that.
would just say, "Tell me the time." And I would always make excuses or, it's not a good time right now. And you just take care of it, you know? So I got this from you, Marta, was a family meeting. So we have our family meeting on Saturday mornings
Mhm,
and we talk within our family meeting about the finances. So again, our kids are hearing the reality of it all. And
mhm,
then my husband and I, we go off and we have our own financial meeting then. And we
mhm,
actually go through the numbers. We go through, our investments. We go through our savings and our debts and all of those things. And where are we allotting the money for this week?
mhm.
And that has become one of my favorite
That's awesome.
things, throughout the week because it's like, oh, this is fun to do,
Yeah.
And again, just knowing the numbers because just having those big goals in mind and being able to set that goal and say, okay, what are the steps that we need to take to make that happen? And
Mhm,
working together for that. And it's just been wonderful. I highly recommend, those small moments, of whether it's a meeting with yourself, meeting with your spouse,
mhm.
and trying to overcome any of those negative feelings that you may have around money because I feel like it is something, you talk about it often, Marta, where it's like, the dirty words,
Yeah.
and, and it's like, it is very true.
Yeah, it's not dirty talk. We're just talking about money. And I like to shock people and be like, I'm not asking you about your sex life. I mean, there's like plenty of professionals who do that. And I think that's important work if you need it. But that's not, I'm just asking, how's your money doing? And from a place of not up here or I'm above it or I figured it all out. It's from a place of, I just want to hold that space of love for you. And I have watched the experts out there that are more judgmental and shaming and really, quite frankly, sometimes giving really unrealistic advice because what's going to work for your family might not work for others. So I really like to hold that space for people. And those sessions right now with me are still complimentary. I do say I'm going to probably get to the point where I will no longer have them be complimentary. I don't know what that point is yet, but I am not there yet. But that's why I like to invite people to schedule their sessions now. And I do have that free money challenge happening on Facebook. We just started. I don't know when this episode airs, if it's going to air after it's over, but it's a free challenge. If you want to tell them about it, since you know when this will air.
Yeah, I love this. Well, one, I definitely would highly recommend you guys scheduling a complimentary call with Marta because it is very, very beneficial. And two, I was going to talk about the money challenge because it's been so fun, right? And
It's
it's
fun
just,
already. Yeah, it's day
yeah,
3 and we're having fun.
yes. So this episode, it'll air on February 24th.
Okay. The challenge, that'll be day 14 on February 24th. However, the group will still be open through the end of February. So you'll have a couple more days after that if you want to hop in there and catch up because there's cash prizes you can win. You can win home decor. You can win treats like Anywho Pretzel Company putting together a homemade treat basket of chocolate covered pretzels that are delicious for you. And so it's a lot of fun. And then pretty regular in there, I'm popping in things to help you with your money mindset. And what I want to clarify is that although I do still provide one-on-one coaching for past clients who are looking for one-on-one sessions, this is different than that because I think a lot of people might think, well, how much are your services? How much is it going to be? Yeah, that first session is complimentary, but how much is it going to be? And truly in this business as a financial rep, my services are free. I do not make money unless you choose to invest with me or have life insurance policies with me. And for me, truly, it's more about finding the right solutions for you. And I will never encourage you to invest money that I know that you need in your everyday life. Yeah,
Right there, Marta. That
yeah.
to me is so valuable because I felt like I fell into that trap long ago, 10 years ago,
Hmm.
where we met with a financial advisor and it was, well, I thought we were going to figure it all out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, here we are, a newly married couple having our first child. I'm pregnant. So at this point, I just want to sign the papers and get out of here. Like, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Dan did
Mm-hmm.
all of that. And I did realize that later on, I was like, wait a second. I thought they were helping us
Hmm.
figure this all out. No, we're investing, which was great. We've now had 10 years of investing. However, we needed to figure out our finances.
Yeah.
So that right there, I think is very, very important to say. I highly recommend
Well,
working with you
thank you.
because it really has been eye opening for us to
Mm-hmm.
be able to say, yeah, this is what we can and this is what we need to do with the extra.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I've met with families that they had invested a while ago in a financial rep and now they couldn't even get a hold of them anymore. And then I went to look at their investments and most of them were cash value. And I knew their situation at the time. And I said, I'd love to invest this for you, but I know your situation. So this isn't actually an investment for the most part. You could just take it out if you need it. And they were like, Really? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate to give you the bad news that it's been sitting there not really growing, but hey, you have a savings account and you can think of it as your emergency fund that you didn't actually have in place. Or
right.
I'll meet with a family and I'll go, what's this money for? Oh, that's our emergency fund. Okay, great. Keep that in there. I would never say you need to invest everything. Or if I do a plan with you and the system says, you could do an extra 500 a month to get towards your investment goal, but I know that that's a big number. Well, let's just start with something small and then let's
Mhm.
build to that. It doesn't have to be right now, right away.
Right. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And it's those small little steps
Yeah.
of getting to those big goals. So I just love that so much. And for this money challenge, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about it. So whether you join the money challenge or not, the whole point of it is to look for money
Yeah.
and just be grateful for anything that you find. So for me, for example, it was a couple bucks in a purse whenever I change purses. Like, whoa, I found $2. And Marta is great at that, just being like, be grateful for what you have,
Hmm.
a check that came in that you didn't expect. And I've
Hmm.
done that before, like, whoa, here's a rebate I didn't even know I had. So that's exciting to see. So that is what we're talking about. Like, it doesn't even have to be within this Facebook group, which you definitely can join. And we'll put that link here in the show notes. But just be looking for money
Hmm.
all around you, whether
And
it's money.
expect it. Expect for money to appear. Expect that money is there. And not from a place of you want to attract more money, but from a place of just having fun. That's really the point of this group is we're just having fun. And I will be going lives, but by the time that you guys will be hearing this, I think there will be one more live after that. My lives come down. They're not out for watching on replay. It's like you watch them live and then they come down. So I did want to give them one bonus thing that they could
Yes,
do.
please.
There is a literal spot where you can find unclaimed money. I've done this myself and I found 6 different sources of money that was owed to me and I had not claimed it because I had moved address or I just never received it. But the website that I used to give people is down, but you could just Google unclaimed properties and there's ample of opportunities to come up. Just be sure that it is a secure website. It's not that you're putting your information or your social security number in any, obviously, scammers will always scam, but a friend of mine did it recently. She got like $291. And what I love about that is I helped to show her like, she didn't invest it, but I was like, hey, if you were to invest this and in this type of fund that had this potential return on it, after 30 years, you would have, and I, named X amount of money. And obviously when I say this, there's never any guarantees or no promises, but it's really the power of money that I love, is that once you start to witness it and pay attention to it and try to be wise with it, it will work for you rather than you having to work so hard for it. But yeah, and definitely look for those unclaimed properties. I had 6 different ones, and I wanted to be more secure and not put my social in the website, even though it was a PA Treasury website. And I filled out a quick form, sent it in. So we'll see. But I do have people that have received money and already spent it. So
that's
it
awesome.
works.
Yeah, we'll definitely add that here too, because I think that's a great little tip.
Yeah.
Well, Marta, do you have any last little tips to share with our listeners today?
I think no matter what, life just keeps getting better and better. That's what I think.
I love that. And where can everyone find you?
I can be found on Instagram at the Money Flow Strategist. That's where you'll find daily tips or positive mindset reminders about money and how money works, how you can give yourself raises without having to ask anybody for them, and how you can potentially fire a boss too.
Oh, I love it all. Be sure to follow Marta for sure. Marta, it's always a pleasure having you on the show and just sharing all the knowledge and information and your positive mindset and abundance and all of that. I just love it so much. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And remember, everyone, you can definitely check the show notes for Marta's free group and ways to get connected with her. I will link those all here in the show notes. And also be sure to just share your takeaways from this episode in the Home Education with Ease Facebook group. And I just love to get connected with you and definitely connect with Marta. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Home Education with Ease podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling empowered and ready to take the next steps on your home education journey. Your support means the world to me. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share with a friend. For even more resources, be sure to join the free Facebook group, Home Education with Ease, and visit eduplaylearning.com to explore programs and subscription kits. You can find the links and any other links mentioned in this episode in the show notes below. Remember, you're not alone. This community is here to support you every step of the way.